Have you ever wondered what that 48-volt switch is on your interface? What does it do and why do I have it? And in this video, I'm going to explain what phantom power is on your audio interface, when to use it, how to use it, and to make sure to keep your gear safe when you're using phantom power. So to quickly explain, on your audio interface, basically all audio interfaces, there is a little switch. Sometimes it's on the front, sometimes it's on the back. On my Focusrite interface, it's on the front of the interface. There's a little button there that has a written inscription 48V. This indicates 48 volts, and if you press the button, it usually lights up red, and when it's unpressed, it's usually grayed out or not activated. What this is phantom power, and this is included on your audio interfaces so it can power certain kinds of gear, typically condenser or ribbon microphones, and sometimes active pickups on guitars. To get in depth on how microphones work, essentially for a condenser or some ribbon microphones, there needs to be a power supply, a DC power supply that is sent to the microphone to activate some electronic parts inside the microphone itself. This is basically because there's a preamp inside the microphone that once it becomes activated, it can actually pick up the volume that is coming into the microphone when you sing into it or you speak into it or use it for whatever musical situation you need to use it for. So to actually pick up the signal, create vibrations inside the microphone, and then send that analog signal to your audio interface. What's happening is your audio interface is taking information, analog information that's coming from the microphone. What your interface does is it converts it to digital ones and zeros that can then go into your DAW. And so then you can actually interact with that audio, interact with that piece of music or whatever you have, whatever the input was, and actually edit it and make it useful inside your DAW. But information coming from your microphone is actually analog information. And so the interface is responsible for translating that information. In order to properly do that, you have to activate phantom power on a few different things. The first thing you want to use phantom power with are condenser microphones. Basically, all condenser microphones come with this feature where there's a preamp or they need additional power in order to activate the microphone properly. And so you'll have to turn on that 48-volt switch when you're recording with the microphone. Here's a couple keys when working with phantom power though. In order to keep your microphone safe, you want to make sure you plug in your microphone, make sure all your cable is set up properly, and then you want to hit the 48-volt switch. You don't want to plug in your microphone directly into a 48-volt switch, as this can maybe damage the microphone in some instances. Yes, I've had a few times where I accidentally plugged it in with the phantom power on and the microphone was okay, but I would not recommend doing that. If possible, I would recommend leaving the phantom power off, plug in your condenser microphone, and then turn the phantom power on. For ribbon microphones, you're going to check your microphone manual and microphone type to see if it can take phantom power and if it needs it to power it. For some ribbon microphones, it's no. For some, it's a yes. Another tip when working with phantom power is to make sure that in your DAW, when you have the input set up, leave the input off. So to make sure that you don't have a monitoring system on or you're not input recording yet when you plug your microphone in, then turn the phantom power on and then record and enable your track. This is a good process to make sure it keeps your piece of gear safe and keeps it from being damaged in all instances. When you are done with your microphone, make sure to turn the phantom power off before unplugging it. And this will just be a very safe procedure for you to go through each time you use it to make sure you don't actually accidentally damage any of your gear or your microphone. Now, what about dynamic microphones? For example, let's say you're using a Shure SM58, SM57, SM7B. Do those microphones require phantom power? For the answer, basically 99% of dynamic microphones, no, they do not require phantom power. They work right off the bat. Also, of course, check your microphone's manual, but for things like the SM58, they do not require that phantom power switch to be on. They work and create input automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. And will you damage your microphone, your dynamic microphone, if you accidentally have the phantom power on? The answer is no. You technically could have the phantom power on. However, I would recommend leaving it off for instruments or microphones that don't require it. There's no reason to keep it on in this case. And in order to keep things, clear and keep things from getting damaged, I would just, in all cases, leave it off unless you need it for your condenser microphone. Believe me, I've accidentally plugged in and plugged out or connected my dynamic microphone accidentally with the phantom power on many times. It's never damaged the microphone. But let's not try and test our luck by unplugging and plugging the microphone in with that phantom power on. It's just best to do things in the correct order and to make sure we're not accidentally damaging our gear or using it in a way that shouldn't be done. And that's it. That's all there is to it when it comes to phantom power. So if you're using your condenser microphone, go ahead and plug it in with the phantom power off. And then once it's finally plugged in and ready to go, hit the phantom power button. Then in your DAW, activate record monitor, and then you can begin recording with your condenser microphone. It should work properly. With guitars and other instruments, I wouldn't worry about phantom power, except for some active pickups will require phantom power to be used properly, but check your guitar or active pickups manual before doing that, as well as your audio interfaces manual before you go down that route. And with dynamic microphones, just go ahead and leave the phantom power off. If you're going to record a guitar amp or your vocals, you won't need any of that. You can hit record input and just go for it. So if you have any questions about phantom power or using them in your interface, leave it in a comment down below, and I'd be happy to help you out. There's also some great articles that I've linked down below that will give you some assistance when it comes to phantom power and whether it's useful for your specific piece of gear. I have a guide called the Home Studio Gear Guide, which gives you a bunch of free resources for figuring out which gear you need in your home studio so you can get set up and start creating music today. So you can go ahead and check that out there in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Anyways, I will see you guys next time.